The 2020 Alan V. Cooper. Yeah, I'm still on a kick on the Alan V. Cooper decision because it's just total bullshit. It's total bullshit. If copyright law means anything, the Constitution protects the right for the federal government to pass patent laws. So the patent law is already embedded in the Constitution. It's already inherent. It's already innate. The concept of sovereign immunity is total bullshit. Is that where qualified immunity comes from? The only thing that's got sovereign immunity in America, in a democracy, is the people. The people have a sovereign immunity, and they have no subjects. So it's a sovereignty which has no subjects or hierarchy. The 2020 Alan V. Cooper decision is a bullshit decision. Even Justice Breyer had said this. He said, states who pirate copyrighted material should pay for which they plundered. So there's a gaping hole, no presence of justice whatsoever in the 2020 Alan V. Cooper Supreme Court decision, just recently handed down in the midst of the coronavirus epidemic. And so these opinions are, if people are reading these opinions and taking them serious, then that's a virus that's spreading as well. So the federal courts, they absolutely blow a major opportunity when it comes to the states. Sometimes Kentucky and Georgia are going to sue each other. Sometimes Colorado and Texas are going to sue each other. And so the federal government, if they're disinterested, non-biased third parties, could, they're blowing a wonderful opportunity of where a court would be of great use. They could be the third party and actually resolve people's disputes. Imagine that. Having a judicial branch that actually resolves disputes. And the American right to sue, we got the right to sue, America, Colorado, Texas. I could sue Germany. As an American, I could sue anybody and everybody for any reason that I want. Now, you don't want frivolous, and you don't want to be, you don't want to be an asshole. But Americans' right to sue is as American as apple pie. It's as American as free speech and the right to petition and assemble and the right to remain silent in life, liberty, and justice. But there is no justice. There is no presence of justice. There's a big gaping hole in this Alan V. Cooper case. So they're going to, throw this legal fiction of Rex non potest peccare. Why? I thought Latin is dead. And how is Latin? Oh, hey, I know a Latin phrase, and somehow that's, law. That's legal tender. That doesn't come from the Constitution. All laws in America have to come from the Constitution. The Constitution gives birth to all the other laws. And so if it's not found in the Constitution, like the words sovereign immunity or rex non potest peccare or any other Latin, that's the king can do no wrong. The king can do no wrong. That's a bullshit. In Colorado and Kentucky and many states, we were born in revolution, so of course you have to have a right to revolution. Or, our entire founding is total bullshit. So the right to revolution is direct opposite to sovereign immunity. We have a three-branch. We got the federalist system. We got the states and the federal, the national government, and then we got the judicial, executive, legislative. It's also elections. It's democracy. So therefore, these republics, because we believe in a republic, that automatically, by the virtue of the Revolution and the Constitution, there is no such thing as sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity, so the Supreme Court was unanimous, 100% against Alan V. Cooper, 100% without a doubt, unanimous. You fucking unanimous. So this is incredible. Now all 9 Supreme Court justices got it wrong. So Justice Breyer admits that, hey, this Allen guy, this Frederick Allen, yeah, he's getting fucked. He did all this work. He thought he got copyright protection for the federal government, but psych, they did the Constitution and the fucking laws. None of that shit means anything because they want to entertain the stupid legal fiction that they've been playing around for 20 years with of sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity. They want to point to a Federalist paper. Federalist papers are not law, okay? So only the Constitution is law. This is a Schenck decision. This is a Plessy versus Ferguson decision. This is a Dred Scott decision. This is the worst of the worst. This is going to be known in history as one of the worst Supreme Court cases ever known. So let's talk about Elena Kagan. Elena Kagan is one that's, writing the opinion. So she writes this opinion and says essentially her hands were tied. She had to follow precedent. And I think her love for precedent is just she's trying to protect Roe versus Wade. So she's pretending that precedent is all that she cares about. Well, 30 years of precedent versus 300 years of precedent. Well, you might say, well, what about slavery? Well, it doesn't matter. It matters if it's good or bad. So if you had 300 years of non-slavery and 30 years of slavery, you should go with the 300 years of precedent. Just because you started slavery 30 years ago doesn't mean you should carry, slavery on. So Elena Kagan said that her hands were tied because of this one court case, 1999 Florida Prepaid Post-Secondary Education Expense Board versus College Savings Bank. So that case is just the long... Why do we have such a long-ass name? Make it short and memorable. For God's sake, this needs to be SCOTUS quality. Fucking 1999 Florida Prepaid Post-Secondary Education Expense Board. I already fell asleep in the middle of just saying what the case is versus College Savings Bank. And then I think it's a state agency, so you don't even... The Florida is in the name of the corporation, but it's absent in the name of the College Savings Bank. It's a bank. But okay, so what are we doing? College Savings Bank... Oh, man, I got this all... So College Savings Bank, doesn't matter, I get the point, the holding of the thing. So College Savings Bank sues Florida for false advertising in federal court under Section 43 of the Lanham Act. So the Lanham Act, I think 1940-something. So College Savings Bank sues Florida. So Florida is a state, so maybe it is Florida. Okay, yeah. So it's Florida College, right? 1999 Florida College versus College Savings Bank. So I think it's just a bank versus the college. Okay, so why couldn't we just say that? Florida versus College Savings Bank. But okay, let's make it, really long then. So long story short, petitioner markets and sells certificates of deposit designed to finance college cost. So the College Savings Bank is trying to find ways to finance college. And then the respondent sued the Florida State Agency for infringing on its finance methodology. So they used certificates of deposit, and that somehow financed college cost. And then the state of Florida, this agency, the college, the Post-Prepaid Secondary Education Expense Board, took that whole, selling certificates of deposits. How does selling certificates of deposits finance college? Anyways, they, took it for infringing on its finance methodology. So, is it okay for the state of Florida to steal, once again, private or corporate copyright? And she says in 1999 it was, so in 2020 it is. Who gives a shit? C'est la vie. Let's go have a big party out in Florida. On the beaches, let's cough on each other and, sneeze and cough and... Yeah, it's spring vacation, right? Vacation, all they ever wanted. Florida, just like North Carolina in the 2020 Allen v. Cooper case, is stealing copywritten material and getting away with it under the guise of the legal fiction known as sovereign immunity. So long story short, this is some bullshit. Scalia, oh man, he speaks from the dead. Scalia's probably going to be with us for a long-ass time. O'Connor and Kennedy all concur. Scalia writes the opinion, Florida College v. College Savings Bank. This is the Rehnquist court. It's a split court. They barely won. It's a 5-4 decision. So to sit there and say, oh, the split decision, right, Elena Kagan, she's like, oh, man, this split decision, which was barely decided, it basically wrote, it pre-wrote, in my opinion. Her hands are tied. Something about digital, Blackbeard. Okay, no, the plunder thing was better. So, holding the Patent and Plant Variety Protection Remedy Clarification Act did not constitutionally abrogate the plant's sovereign, or the state's, excuse me, the Patent and Plant Variety Protection Remedy Clarification Act. Why the patent in plants? The plants didn't even have anything to do with it, but it's a patent law, but it says it's, that's unconstitutional. They didn't abrogate the state's sovereign immunity. Sovereign immunity reigns supreme. So sovereign immunity has, for the last, couple court cases, has been reigning supreme. Basically, if you don't say specifically where this power comes from and how, and there's the judicial branch has the power to see cases between citizens and states in the Constitution, and there's also specifically a patent clause. So the Constitution specifically defends, so you have constitutional law, and you got state law, you got federal law, you got all the laws that are saying, that this you can't do this, but Supreme Court's like, sovereign immunity, who cares about the law? Some people don't have to abide by the law, and hopefully if we keep protecting all these, assholes in government, maybe they'll extend the favor back to us. John Paul Stevens issued a dissent in this case. So apparently the Patent Remedy Act is inappropriate under the City of Bourne 1997 decision. So John Paul Stevens said that the Constitution gives Congress the power to regulate patents. So, John Paul Stevens is saying the same stuff that I'm saying. So that's the court case that she pins all of her hopes on, the 1999 Florida. So I got lots of different court cases. I'm actually going to spell out the entire, argument. What's their best arguments versus my arguments? And we'll see, that sounds like a lot of fun, right? So first, I'm going to give them their arguments. I mean, I feel like I understand, logic well enough. So they're saying that North Carolina, even though they owe Frederick Allen for his work, he probably should get $100,000. They're not going to, institute this. They know for a fact, they can be appellate court. So if they see a problem with process, then they can, fuck a state up or a court case up. But if they don't see a problem with the process, and then they just say, well, should we appeal? Is this big enough of an issue to elevate? Should we? And so they're going to go along with sovereign immunity. I'm guessing the lawyers for Frederick Allen wasn't very good, but Frederick Allen has a hook for left hand, and they basically ripped off his right hand and made him, two hook. So they didn't do that, but they fucked his life over, right? He went ahead and did all this. The state of North Carolina owes him for his work in videotaping and taking pictures of the lifting of the Blackbeard, the pirates' flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge. It sunk over 200 years ago. They just raised it 92,000 or some shit. He did 20 years worth of work, dangerous work, doing deep sea scuba diving and, all that, right? So he's doing 20 years worth of work. They owe him at least 100. They paid him $15,000 for one thing they stole, but not for the rest of the stuff that they stole. So $100,000 at least, for his work, but the Supreme Court isn't going to uphold this, so they're going to squash this sovereign immunity. Now Frederick Allen can't even pursue his, civil lawsuit in order to get some money for this. So, the arguments against me, the 11th Amendment. The 11th Amendment combined with all these recent Supreme Court case rulings. This is terrible, precedent that they just recently, it's a legal fiction. They just come up with this shit 30 years ago. So the 11th Amendment combined with the recent Supreme Court case rulings, but the 11th Amendment, if you read it specifically, allows the citizens of a specific state to sue one's own state in federal courts. So a citizen of Tennessee can sue Tennessee, a citizen of Texas can sue the state of Texas, and a citizen of California, Alaska, Montana can sue their respective state governments. The 11th Amendment exclusively omits. They say that the citizens of other states can't sue the other states. So a citizen of Colorado can't sue Texas, California, and then there's also the thing when two states sue each other, it's like the people of the one state versus the people of the other state. And so the federal courts are perfect. They are perfect. They are blowing an opportunity, absolutely blowing a huge mist, just swinging a whiff, just strike three, they don't, they're disinterested. Federal courts, they're, the state, they would be perfect, non-biased, third party, disinterested courts that would actually give fair and equitable and meaningful decisions. And you would think that a branch would jealously protect its power, But they would have to expand the federal courts to, you know, allow the fucking peasants and the plebes and shit. So we don't want to encourage that kind of, you know, shenanigans. Jesus Christ, could you imagine if all the poor fuckers were actually using federal courts in order to, you know, achieve justice or, you know, remedy or figure out their disputes, mediate their problems. So the 11th Amendment has a big gaping loophole that says, you know, it implies sovereign immunity. It doesn't say sovereign, it implies it, but the loophole is a person from their own state, you know, a citizen of America can sue their own state. So Alan V. Cooper, if Alan's from North Carolina, all bets are off. Now, Federalist 81. Okay, so I'm just going to read actually all these off. That'll be meaningful, and then I'll come back to each one. So, the 11th Amendment is against me. Federalist 81 is against my argument. The 1890 Hans v. Louisiana decision, and 1999 Alden v. Maine case, and James Madison and James Marshall made some comments in the Virginia Convention that goes against my argument. The Seminole Tribe of Florida case, the split 5-4 decision where the Seminole natives get, you know, fucked, they get raped, you know, again, without a reach around, no mitt on their pillow, and no kiss goodbye. The Seminole tribes get fucked in the 1996, 99, whatever, the Seminole Tribe of Florida v. Florida case, which is a case that, you know, they use, but that case goes against us because they uphold, you know, sovereign immunity in it. The 1999 Florida Prepaid Post-Secondary Education Expense Board v. College Savings Bank is also against my argument, and, you know, today's Supreme Court 2020 Alan v. Cooper decision is also against it. But frankly, I think they're just completely off on a tangent. They're not even, their train who's, you know, just dove into the ocean, and now they're trying to, you know, drive around on the floor of the ocean. They're off track, so they need to get back on track. They, you know, seem to have lost their way. I mean, the patent clause is in the Constitution, and even the resolving disputes between citizens of, you know, different states, that's in the Constitution too. So they're just being lazy. I mean, you know, come on, Elena Kagan, why are you being so damn lazy? Jesus Christ, why don't you, you know, do your job? This is, if anything, you got all the time in the world during this coronavirus pandemic to sit back and read, you know, a couple Supreme Court cases. So, those are the arguments against me. 11th Amendment, Federalist 81, Hans v. Louisiana, Alden v. Maine, Seminole Tribe of Florida v. Florida, Florida Prepaid, Post-Secondary, and, you know, that's it. So that's all I got. Okay, ooh, I'm so scared. So, the counterpoints. Article 3, Section 2. The powers in the Constitution. Actually, I'll just read all the things. I got a lot of things on my side. There's a patent clause. There's the, you know, actual powers of the judicial branch. So she can, you know, just read about the judicial, Elena Kagan. Just open up the Constitution and just read about the powers that the judicial branch of the federal government has. Just, you know, open up the Constitution. It's not that long, so you should read the Constitution. A lot of important, you know, distinctions and laws come out of the Constitution. So, Article 3, Section 2 specifically says, judicial power extends to all cases in law and equity arising under this Constitution, the laws of the U.S., to controversies which the U.S. shall be a party, to controversy between two or more states, between a state and citizens of another state, between a state and citizens of another state, between a state and citizens of another state, between citizens of different states, between citizens of different states, between citizens of the same state claiming lands under grants of different states, and between a state or the citizens thereof and the foreign states, citizens, and subjects. Everybody, right? State versus citizen, Texas citizen versus New York State, New York citizen versus Montana citizen. Everything, everybody. It's, you know, the federal government can resolve your dispute, or the federal court system is here for the people. The people have sovereign immunity. That's the only thing that has sovereign immunity. If the sovereign immunity, if there is subjects of the people, it would be the court and the government system. So I said that they do have subjects. The sovereign are the people, and the court system and the executive and legislative system should be working for the people. That's the only thing that's sovereign, that gets sovereign immunity in America. So, Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution, the powers of the judicial branch is on my side. The patent clause of the U.S. Constitution is on my side. 1819 McCulloch v. Maryland is on my side. Federalist 82 is on my side. 1990 Copyright Remedy Clarification Act is on my side. The 1821 Cohen's decision is on my side. And Souter's dissent in Olden v. Maine 1999 is on my side. Also, Chisholm v. Georgia, to a lesser extent, Fitzpatrick v. Bitzer, Pardon v. Terminal Railway of Alabama, and 1908 Ex parte Young. So 1976 Fitzpatrick v. Blitzer, or Bitzer, not Blitzer, Bitzer. It says that you can enforce the rights of the citizen, civil rights, free speech, right to assemble via the 14th Amendment through certiorari. So basically, the 14th Amendment can be used as a conduit to say equal protection, due process. If a state doesn't uphold the freedom of speech, then you can sue that state in federal courts. So there are, lots of exceptions to the so-called sovereign immunity. 1908 Ex parte Young, they throw the Attorney General of Minnesota in the fucking jail. So apparently, if you're on the wrong side of the Supreme Court, well, you don't get sovereign immunity. But, so let's see, go through the 1821 Cohen's decision, right? So just go through the whole list again. The arguments against me is the 11th Amendment, mostly. 2/3 of the 11th Amendment seems to imply something, but it's not. None of these are good arguments, I don't think, but they're the best arguments that the other side has. Federalist 81. This is fucking Alexander Hamilton said something about sovereignty is a natural human right for the sovereigns or something. Not the people, not the poor landless peasants, but the, elites and the kings and queens. Of course they got sovereignty. 1890 Hans v. Louisiana decision. This fucked all Americans over. This says that no American can use a federal court to sue the state. And then 1999 kind of just put the nail in the coffin for all rights of all Americans in all the states. So the Hans decision says that Americans cannot use federal courts to sue the states. The Alden decision says that American citizens can't sue the state in state courts either. So this sovereign immunity and legal fiction is just getting bigger and ballooning, and it's getting to, sovereign immunity is not even law. It's not even a fucking law. Seminole Tribe of Florida, this is where they adhered to a law, I think, passed by the Clinton administration to engage in good faith negotiations, but the state of Florida wasn't having it. Good faith negotiations? Fuck you. And then they spent a bunch of money on lawyers, and they fucked over the Seminole Tribe. But they're going to say sovereign immunity. So that's kind of a complicated thing, but essentially it's all the good faith negotiation thing. So they basically were adhering to the congressional law, constitutional law. The Seminole Tribe were doing, exactly as the American government had told them to do, and the fucking government of Florida wasn't doing what they were supposed to do, and the government of Florida winds up winning. Their court system fucks over the Seminole Tribe. SCOTUS, 5-4 split decision. So, you're going to come at me with the Seminole Tribe of Florida v. Florida. That's a split decision, 5-4. They barely even knew what the fuck they were talking about in that decision. And you could read the dissents, and they basically, kind of say all the same things I'm saying now. And then last but not least, 1999 Florida Prepaid Post-Secondary Education Expense Board. This, this case, wrote it for... Elena Kagan, you looked into this case way too much, way too long. Your mind is just totally warped and fucked because you're trying to, kind of put all these ideas and opinions together as if they actually make any kind of logical sense, and they don't. None of them make logical sense. You're just making up the opinion, on a whim. Some days, if you woke up in a bad mood, you're going to, rule against, some good opinions. If you wake up in a good mood, you might... let some bad opinions slide by. So, just pay attention to your mood. If you're in a good mood, then corruption could happen. So always stay in a bad mood. Okay? Supreme Court. So, my point, the Article 2, or Article 3, Section 2, powers of the judicial branch, that covers me. The patent clause. Patent clause says just this. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right to the respective writings and discoveries. So that's patent. You're allowed to have copyrights, patent, intellectual property. That's intellectual property right there. 200 fucking years ago, they're like, you know what? This intellectual property shit might turn into something. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. So the intellectual property is property per the Constitution. Property is protected. Life, liberty, and property is, protected under the Constitution. Therefore, the Constitution applies to the protection of property when they, states try to steal intellectual property, like they did with Frederick Allen. Poor Frederick Allen only has a hook for the left hand, so Frederick Allen doesn't get paid for his work, and now Frederick Allen has to, basically just do everything with just his right hand. His, left hand, he can maybe in some sort of, crazy robbery or violence, some, crime is going down. He might be able to use his hook then, but, what a fucking shit life. He never got justice. He doesn't get paid. He has to go through life with just a hook for a hand. So the 1819 McCulloch v. Maryland, this says the federal government has more power than the state government. The Civil War suggests federal government has more power than the state government too. The U.S. can create a United States bank. McCulloch v. Maryland is all about the Bank of America, the Bank of the United States, like the Federal Reserve, but a bank where it was public and democratic, and you could audit and you could see all the books, and it wasn't secretive and off to the side and sketchy as fuck. $500 billion for the Federal Reserve. But the federal government can create a Federal Reserve or a bank and plop it right down in Maryland. Maryland cannot tax it out of existence. They can't say shit to any of the federal agencies or federal buildings that the American government, builds in all the different states. This is 1819. So really be, skeptical of all federal buildings that they're building throughout America. Federalist 82 says framers intended for the Supreme Court to have appellate power over state courts. So the Supreme Court was the, court of last resort. So of course they can always appeal. They can always appeal a state court. Sovereign immunity. The goddamn federal court system is saying we don't even have a right to listen to this court case by an American who has, a piece of the sovereignty of the people. An individual American. Do you not have the right as an American, citizen to sue your own goddamn state government? Apparently not. There's sovereign immunity, and then they give qualified immunity for cops who shoot and kill people. So immunity here, immunity there, fuck it. Let's just have a whole class of people that's just outside the law. That goes against the rule of law, which is a staple of democracy. So, Federalist 82 is on my side. McCulloch v. Maryland, the Copyright Act says specifically, it adds Title 17 provisions, and they state clearly, states shall not be immune under the 11th Amendment of the Constitution or any other doctrine of sovereign immunity from suit in federal court for a violation of the exclusive rights of a copyright owner. That's the 1990 Copyright Act. Straight up says, you know what, fuck your sovereign immunity, but they're like, no, not fuck it. And then 1821 Cohen's decision, this is a perfect, precise, this is a great court case. The literal meaning of the 11th Amendment was upheld in 1821 Cohen's decision. They said that you can sue your own state. Now, the Cohens, they're actually going to get convicted, and the Supreme Court is going to uphold their conviction. But the reason why it's a good law is because a U.S. citizen can sue your own state. A Coloradan citizen can sue the state of Colorado in a federal court. That's the correct interpretation of the scope and power of the 11th Amendment. So the 1821 Cohen's decisions on my side, and then Souter's dissent in Alden v. Maine, right? They're going to say Alden v. Maine, sovereign immunity even applies to state courts too. It is un-American to stop an American from suing. This is Souter. Souter is, Justice Souter. Remember the American Revolutionary War? Anybody? Am I the only one? American Revolution fought against British and oppression and all their bullshit. So Souter's dissent, these are my best arguments. Chisholm v. Georgia is on my side. The actual case of itself, the facts of the case. This is, John J. Court. This is 4-1. The very first decision, first Supreme Court decision of major impact, decided February 18th, 1793. And the facts are right. Justice was obtained. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So you got to get justice. The presence of justice has to be a consideration. My God, Atlantic Kagan, you're the court of last resort. the presence of justice has to be a part of your decisions. So this is just such a lazy decision. It fucked over Frederick Allen, who deserves at least $100,000 from the state of North Carolina. But the state of North Carolina would rather spend millions of dollars fighting Frederick Allen, so that way they don't have to pay him for his copyright material or any of the